Good morning. I just took a shower. I'm getting ready to go to lunch with some friends. Very unexpected lunch date today. I'm using Too Faced Born This Way. My makeup takes approximately 4 minutes. Anyways, kind of wanted to talk about having kids today. If you're new, I'm Sharon. I'm married with 2 kids to my second husband. I was married for almost 5 years to my first husband from 2015 to 2020, and obviously that didn't work out. If you're curious about what happened there, here's my divorce video. Obviously, my ex and I made a lot of mistakes, and maybe we shouldn't have gotten married, or maybe we should have. I don't regret anything. I don't think my ex regrets anything, although I guess technically we've never talked about that, so I don't know for sure. But I definitely don't regret anything, and I think everything happened for a reason. Like, it kind of needed to happen that way for both of us, actually, like for our identity development. But one thing that I think we really got right together, the best decision we ever made, was not having kids together. I think because we were pretty young when we got married. I was 25. People didn't really ask us too many questions about having kids. Like, I didn't feel a lot of pressure or anything like that. And so that wasn't really a factor in us having kids. But obviously we talked about having kids, and I've always wanted kids. And so it was always my goal to have our first kid before I turned 30. And ironically, I got divorced at 30. But for different reasons along our marriage, there was just never a good time to start having kids. And I know that no one's ever really to have kids, and it's such a big decision that it could feel overwhelming to expect this moment where you like wake up one day and you're like, okay, today I'm ready to start having kids. So I think that does happen to some people, and I think some people are more ready than other people, whether they're actually more ready or they just feel more ready. But for us, it really did not feel like a smart idea to have kids together, and every year kind of just had its own reason. Also, for concealer, I used 𝐊𝐄𝐃𝐼𝐻, and then for my setting powder, I used Too Faced Born This Way, and then for my contour, I used Bare Minerals. All my brushes are also from 𝐊𝐿𝐿𝐿. Okay, I don't think you really care about that, especially for this video, but just to finish the thought, you know. Every year had a different reason of why we didn't have kids, and having kids is something that I just took so seriously for many reasons, but one of the reasons just being, I just could not imagine us having kids and like living in this co-parental harmony together. This is Biossance Rose Vegan Lip Balm. I think that when people are going through a hard time in their marriage, they think that maybe kids will fix a lot of the things that they're struggling with, or even if it doesn't fix it, that it'll just make it better. I don't know, I think there's this like hope and this pressure put on having kids in really challenging marriages. I don't know about you, I don't know if you know people like this, or maybe you've experienced this, but I don't think that's how it works. Kids do not fix marriages. From the day-to-day, like taking care of our baby, being sleep deprived, and really needing each other to support one another. And then for the mom, if she has like really bad postpartum depression or just a rough recovery, she really relies on her partner to help her recover and take care of the baby. And especially if you don't have support otherwise, like if you don't have family nearby or just really close friends that are willing to help you kind of more consistently, it would be so rough to be in a marriage where you're not on the same page, you weren't doing well before you had kids, and now you have this child that you need to take care of. And then if you have multiple children, then that makes it even harder. I think this topic's also on my mind more heavily because of the election. I just see so many people disagreeing on social media or even in my group of friends. Everybody has their own opinion, everyone has different beliefs, and that's fine. But if you and your spouse are not on the same page about core beliefs, I just can't imagine how hard that would be to raise a child together and teach this child how the world works and what to believe and what is right and wrong when the kid's parents are not even on the same page. Not only that, I see quotes and things that kind of insinuate like, would you want your kid to grow up to be just like your husband? Or like something that my mom said to me a long time ago that I'll never forget is, don't have kids with somebody unless you love them so much that you think to yourself, I must have kids with this person. And I think I would add on to that, like, and I would want my kid to be just like this person. And I think if you don't have that feeling and you're just having kids because you just want kids or because you think it'll help your marriage when you're having a really rough marriage, I would really urge you to think about that again. And let me just tell you that that is not a good idea. I think because my oldest is approaching 3 years old now and he's just talking so much and he's absorbing all this information, we have to be a little bit more careful about what we say around him because he is listening and he is repeating things that we say now. And I can just tell that he's a sponge and he's observing us and soaking in all the things that we are doing, saying, and I think even just character traits that we exude. He is absorbing all of that. So I've been kind of thinking about how we can be more intentional about raising him with biblical values and just starting to actively teach him what we believe and talk to him about God and talk to him about Jesus and the gospel and all these things that we need to start having conversations with him and what kind of books we read to him. I mean, we need to just read more books to him in general, but yeah, like the conversations that we're starting to have with him. And it just makes me think that one of my favorite things about Daniel is that I can just trust that anything that he teaches Lewis is something that I would 100% agree with. And if somebody asked me, do you want your sons to grow up to be like Daniel? I would say, absolutely. I think Daniel is the best. Like, I see his character every day. I see his efforts to be the best husband he can be, the best father he can be, the best faithful servant he can be. These are things that I never doubt about him. And I'm so grateful for that because it's one less huge thing that I have to worry about in terms of what he's going to say to our kids or how he's going to treat our kids and whatever. And obviously, Daniel's not perfect and we're going to disagree on things in our parenting journey. And I know that. But at a foundational level, we're on the same page. I understand if you're watching this, and especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're getting older, and you just really want kids. I really wanted kids too. It was something that my ex really knew about me. It's obviously something we talked about many times, but something that we were very much on the same page on was the seriousness of bringing a child into this world, into a family that was just not doing well and had really big struggles, that we definitely kept each other accountable for being careful to not accidentally get pregnant. And this is not to say that if your marriage is going through a rough patch or that there are some issues that you guys need to figure out that you shouldn't have kids. If you feel like it's fine in the sense where you're going to work things out, you are trying and you are working things out, and what you're going through is something that you have a lot of hope in and you feel like it'll be okay, use your judgment. It's your marriage. You know deep down. And I know I talk a lot about like gut feeling and like knowing deep down and stuff like that, but I really believe that to be true. You know if it's right, or like you know that you're just rationalizing. Think about bringing a child into this world with your marriage and just ask yourself, is this a good idea or not? And if it's not, then I think it could be very unwise to get pregnant just because you just want a kid. I would just really encourage you and urge you to work out some of the bigger things in your marriage before you do that. And we're not talking about accidental pregnancies. If you're already pregnant or you already have a kid and it's been rough, that is so different. Then you try your best and you keep working on things and you give that kid the best life that they can give and you try your best in your role as their parent. But I'm talking about you're not pregnant yet. You can take active measures to make sure you don't get pregnant. Your marriage is going through a really rough time. You're not even sure if you even trust your partner to raise this child with you, like what they're going to teach your kid or how they're going to treat your kid or whatever. Maybe it's not the best idea to have a kid right now. Anyways, I already said this, but my ex and I were very much on the same page with this. I'm so thankful for that. I cannot imagine getting divorced and having a kid together. It makes me shudder. It makes me cringe thinking about how we would have to share custody of our child while we live such different lives, and also how we would have to stay in each other's lives because of our kid. It also makes me so sad thinking about how that life would be for my child and how they would have such confused questions, especially as a young kid, and how I would have to explain things to them when I don't even really understand what's going on sometimes. After we decided to split, but nothing was official yet, or we were still living together, my ex actually made me a generous offer. I don't know if generous is the right word, but I think it's generous in the sense that it's like a little sacrificial. Knowing that at this point, I had no intention of getting remarried or having kids, I just kind of signed my life off to be this like single person and doing whatever I want. And I kind of gave up that dream when I made peace with myself that I was never going to get married again. My ex offered to basically impregnate me and give me a baby because we had talked about it so many times on how important it was to me to have kids or how much I wanted to have kids. And I'm not gonna lie, I considered it for 30 seconds. And obviously I'm so glad that I did not take that offer. And I don't know if we would have even gone through with it. Like, obviously that's such a weird situation. But the point is that my ex knew how important it was to me and how much I wanted kids. And I think this is something that really shows how much we did care for each other and how there's no like malice between us, at least not for me. I know I talk about a lot of random things on this channel with like red flags and just compatibility and things like that, but that's not a personal thing. That's just objectively what I believe to be true of wanting women to end up with great guys that they are compatible with, that will treat them well, treat their family well. So it is generally based off my experience, but it's not to blast anybody. It's just something that I want women to have, like really great marriages. So anyways, those are kind of my thoughts about this. Some people have asked me in the past why we didn't have kids, or if we ever tried to have kids, if it was purposeful not having kids. The answer is we were very careful to not get pregnant. The world is just getting so divided, and I think it's even harder to stay firm as Christians in this day and age. Whatever you believe, whatever that means for you, I just think certain topics and moral issues can be very divisive, and that could happen in your own home with your spouse. I'm sure there are so many marriages and couples out there that make it work, that do have very different beliefs, and they somehow make it work. I personally would really struggle with that, especially if I really disagreed with my spouse. If it was something that was kind of like a tier 2, tier 3, kind of a whatever issue, and we can agree to disagree, then fine. But when it comes to like very foundational beliefs, very different interpretations of what the Bible says about things that I believe to be really important, that would be really hard for me. So anyways, if you are thinking about having kids with your spouse and you guys are going through a hard time, I think I would just ask you, do you want to have kids because you just want kids? Or do you feel like this is genuinely the right time and it's a good idea to have kids with your husband or your wife? Another thing I would ask you is, would you want your kids to grow up to be like your spouse? Is that a compliment to you, or does that make you cringe? Does that worry you a little bit? And if that's the case, then I don't know, maybe you guys need to work some stuff out or get on the same page or go to couples counseling first. Figure some stuff out, and then maybe you can kind of revisit that. Another question is, do you trust your spouse to raise your child in the way that you want your child to be raised? Like, this is going to be a team effort. And do you feel like your partner is on board on this team to help raise this kid on what you believe is the best way to raise a kid? You don't have to agree on everything, and you won't. And we definitely don't either. But like, the core foundational things, are those things the same? Again, I'm just speaking from my personal experience and the things that are important to me. Things that would make me cringe, like having a kid with somebody that I just like didn't agree with, or that I wouldn't be proud to say, I want my child to grow up to be exactly like my husband. This is not to say that you need to believe that your spouse is perfect or that everything has to be rainbows and butterflies before you have a kid. That's obviously not realistic all the time. And I think the ebbs and flows and even the valleys in marriages are so beautiful and so necessary for growth and for connection and just growing stronger as a couple in Christ. But I do think there's a fine line between having a kid because you selfishly want a kid and you're just rationalizing and telling yourself that you're just going to make it work, or that it's going to fix your marriage, or that it's going to make things better, versus I think we're doing okay, we're working on some things, I feel a lot of hope in our marriage, I want to raise a child with you, let's try to have a kid. I think that's just so different. Sometimes it could feel a little bit gray in that area, and like I said, you know your marriage best, you make your judgment call. But for us, I'm so grateful that every year that we struggled with different things, we had the sense to say, we're not ready, we probably shouldn't have a kid together right now. And then we ended up getting divorced. Last thing I'll say, and this is obvious, when you have a baby, it's a lot of freaking work and you're tired and you just really both need to have good attitudes. And not to say that you're not allowed to be absolutely exhausted or struggle, right? But in general, you and your partner should be on the same team, help each other out with a good attitude, and not turn on each other when things are just so effing hard and tiring. You will slip sometimes, you'll both slip sometimes. But if the dynamic between you before you had kids was very like this eggshell, like you feel like your spouse is not generally a good attitude person, you don't feel super safe asking for things that you would need or asking for help, or you would always feel like you're annoying them or frustrating them. And if that was kind of the norm before you had kids, what do you think it's going to be like after you have kids? So yeah, just kind of wanted to say that too, because you're going to be really tired. Okay, I hope that made sense. As usual, don't hear what I'm not saying. Trust yourself. You know your situation best. You are trying your best. So keep trusting your gut and try to make good choices. Okay, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, one more thing I thought of while I was drying my hair. For the people who are watching this who are not married yet, if you're dating somebody, I also want you to ask yourself, do I want to have kids with this person? And then think about all the things I said. Okay, now let's see you in the next one.